Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, hosted by Echo and brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine. In this episode, we take you inside the world of HEMS aviation safety, where we're joined by members of the Echo safety team to dive deep into the critical role safety plays in HEMS operations. From exploring the Public Safety Aviation Bill of Rights to tackling emerging issues like laser strikes and UAS operations, we'll cover the latest trends shaping the industry. We'll also discuss the challenges of green-on-green situations, the importance of mentorship and experience, and the strategies that help enhance safety on every mission. This episode emphasizes the significance of fostering a culture of safety, one that prioritizes open dialogue, risk assessment, and collaboration across all levels of the crew. Tune in as we explore how a just culture, ongoing education, and mental health integration are all essential in building a safer, more transparent public safety aviation community. It's an insightful conversation you won't want to miss. Thank you to our sponsors, Airbus, Metro Aviation, and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine. Produced in partnership with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations, the Valor Flight Crew podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fideli and Blake Schreider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, Line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast. I'm Mike Fideli. I'm here with Blake Schreider, and we are your hosts for the Valor Flight Crew podcast. How are you, Blake?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing good. How about you?
Hey, hanging in there, having a good day so far. Got myself to the gym already and starting the day off with a bang. So,
dude, you're so motivated going to the gym. I feel like such a slack.
I gotta be gotta work off that stress a little bit somehow.
Yeah,
things have been a little bit crazy lately, so I take that opportunity when I can.
I'll follow suit here soon, I promise.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay, excellent.
We have got a great show for you guys today. We are going to be meeting with the members of the Echo safety team. And I'm excited to have this podcast because the safety team is one of the newer facets of Echo, but it's an extremely important one, as I'm sure you can all imagine. You know, we talk about safety being priority number one. And so at Echo, we felt that it was about time that we also had a group that was focused on safety and rolling out some initiatives across the entire industry. And today we get to speak with three of those members. So I'd like to take a moment to just introduce those three people. We have Veronica Marzoni, Joe Lebrecq, and Crystal Todd. Welcome to all of you guys. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, doing good. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you guys here. And I was going to say, if you guys can just take a quick moment, just do a little introduction of yourselves, what kind of flight experience you have, what your role is within the industry, and how you found out about Echo and what drew you in.
I guess as the one who's been around Echo the longest, I'll get started. So I have been in critical care transport for 9 years, background in EMS and nursing. I'm employed as a nurse. And I work in both the fixed wing and rotor wing world, as well as ground operations, so a lot of flexibility. And I'm very passionate about safety and have been involved in safety initiatives and safety committees, whatnot, since I got started in air medical 9 years ago. And as for Echo, I was introduced to Echo in 2017. The Boston conference was my first. And I was immediately hooked. The camaraderie that I found within Echo, meeting other flight crews, and the ability to talk about different ways that we accomplish similar and different aspects of the job and being able to learn from each other was really what drew me in.
Yeah, I'm sure you can probably attest to this, Veronica, but Echo has definitely changed over the last, 9-10 years. It's grown quite a bit, but it's been an awesome ride.
Yes, it's been a great journey to witness and to be a part of. I've been volunteering with Echo since 2018, 2019-ish. I had an opportunity to work in basically almost every different area of Echo, from doing logistics and social media stuff to the fast peer support team and safety, and now moving into try to contribute as a member of the board. So I've really gotten to see a lot of the growth at Echo. It's been really great.
That's awesome. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you here on the podcast today. Crystal, would you like to go next?
My name's Crystal Todd. I'm in Montana, and I've been a respiratory therapist for 26 years. Been flying for a little over 14. And about 5 years ago, 2019, I had the privilege to get into the safety officer role. At that time, my program offered to send me to SMTA for a safety conference that I was able to participate in. And with COVID, it turned from a 2-year program to a 3 with a year break in there. And that experience gave me some networking that just kind of grew my knowledge and my resources into the safety world. And Joe was part of our program that I was in. So Joe and I have been friends since we've done SMTA together. He got me into Echo in San Diego. He was going, and we had a pretty tight-knit group from our class that we would all share information. He had told our group that, hey, you're going to San Diego. Echo's this great conference group. They put on this. This is what they represent. So I attended San Diego, and I was hooked from there. So I've got 2 years with my feet in, and now hitting the ground running, and pretty excited for it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on board, and welcome again. And we're looking forward to the chat today.
Thank you.
Joe, welcome to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Joe Breck, a helicopter pilot, been flying since 2002. I did your typical civilian helicopter pilot route in my career. Went offshore for a few years, most of the time. Metro Aviation hired me in 2007, gave me my first EMS experience. As you guys all know, 2008 was a horrible year for helicopter accidents. So that really drove me into the safety realm, and I started really getting involved in trying to make the industry safer and constantly researching and doing that type of stuff. In 2014, I left Metro and went to the organization I'm at now in Central Texas here. And in 2017, became their director of safety. In 2022, we hosted the Echo conference in Austin, and that's what brought me to Echo. I was well aware of the conference, and we actually sent some staff years prior to the conference, but I didn't really understand exactly what they did and what their outlook was until I went. I was invited to be on the safety panel. It was a great experience. Met, just like Crystal said, collaboration with all the different folks from all the different disciplines. It just really drew me into it.
That's awesome. And I think that's really what Echo is all about. It's about breaking down those barriers, rather than flying by the neighboring agency and, waving at them without all of your fingers.
Your driving finger. Yeah.
Yes. It's nice to be able to sit down and have some conversations and really try to make the entire industry a little bit better. So
Definitely.
Welcome to all of you guys. Blake, you ready to get into it?
Hey, yes, sir. Well, how about before we do, let's try to break the ice a little bit. Try to loosen up the mood here. We typically ask everybody to please bring up the last song you were listening to on your streaming device, and be honest. There's no judgment. Openly,
maybe a little bit of judgment,
but we're just curious. What were you last listening to? What was the song that you were jamming to? And if you want, I'll start. I was driving home this morning after getting off shift. It was up all night, so I was just empty, and I just kind of let my playlists go. So it was Morgan Wallen, "Thinking About Me."
I'm kind of getting the vibe that all you listen to is country, Blake. I feel
I know it's kind of what's been on the playlist lately, and I think I listen to music kind of based on the temperature or like how I'm feeling, how it is outside. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of been in a country mode lately. So yeah.
Has it been a country song every episode so far?
Yes.
But
also, so has Mike's.
No. Last time, remember, I was singing karaoke.
Oh, that's okay. You were doing karaoke. My bad. Okay. True.
So, who wants to go next?
So, Mike, what karaoke song were you?
I was not doing karaoke this time. Like I said, I came from the gym, so I did have my AirPods in, and I was needed a little bit of motivation in the gym. So for me, it was "Hey Look Ma, I Made It" by Panic at the Disco.
Oh, nice!
So I needed some motivation today.
There you go.
Need a little upbeat stuff, especially when I dread cardio so much.
I guess I'll throw myself under the bus. I hopped in the car this morning, popped on the Sirius XM, and it showed some additional channels, and there was I think it was 70s, 80s, and 90s country, which I usually don't listen to country on my drive in. And the last song right out of my car is actually going to start playing again. I hopped in because it wasn't finished, but it was a Jolene Dog Hard.
Nice. Classic.
Yeah.
Love it.
A little different than the current version.
Yes.
I'm a
All right.
rocker. It gets my day going.
Awesome.
Mine was Godsmack When Legends Rise.
Oh, good song. Good song. Definitely appreciate that.
That's some motivation.
I last had up the 90s radio channel on Pandora. So the last song that was up was the Goo Goo Dolls Slide.
Nice.
I love
I've
it.
not heard that in a very long time.
Hey now.
Very long time.
No. Easy. You start throwing out some last century stuff
Long
with the fact I was
time.
listening to 90s radio.
Very long time, B.
All right.
I
is
saw
a
them
hot
in the
minute.
90s.
Wow. All right.
They're still touring.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
All right.
So
Well-
that lights the mood a little bit. I love it.
Yeah,
I always love what
absolutely.
everybody's listening to. It's really great. So we can get into it if y'all are ready. So Joe, I'm gonna throw it to you real quick. Can you tell us a little bit? How did Echo come up with the safety team? How did it develop, and what was really like the motivating like purpose behind say, hey, we need a safety team? How did that come about?
Well, as Veronica stated earlier, she was kind of there during most of the inception. I think she'd probably be the best to answer that question and give the most details on it. So I
Okay,
want to swing it over to her.
Veronica.
That was a great sidestep, Joe.
It's a lot of great old jokes being thrown around today.
Oh man.
My crew is gonna love this. Yes, so I was there in the very beginning. 2018 and 2019, we had some just ad hoc requests from a few different programs to present various training or to help review some different things safety related. And so that kind of really opened the conversation of how can Echo contribute in this arena. And we were already starting to see really quickly great success from the Echo Fast peer support team and the collaboration that it brought. And I think that safety kind of became a tandem to that, in that it's something to offer more proactively and trying to really look to improve our industry on the front end, as well as taking, there's always going to be errors that happen, but taking and finding those lessons learned and sharing them with a wider audience than just talking with your crew on shift about something that happened. So being able to draw in on lessons learned from other sectors, that it's not just that something that happens in air medical only applies to air medical, but that there's great things that we can learn about operational efficiency and risk management from the search and rescue and from law enforcement aviation and fire aviation. And so safety kind of is a place to pull all that together. So kind of started and kind of had a little bit of a stunted start with COVID kind of landing in the middle of trying to get rolling. But I think our first big initiative was the Public Safety Aviation Bill of Rights. And that really came out of, that kind of galvanized, I think, those of us who were around and looking at how we could bring improving safety across the industry, which was that 2019 was not a great year in public safety aviation. It wasn't as bad as everybody talking about, people always hark back to 2008, but there were 13 major incidents just in public safety aviation and 17 fatalities in 2019, including the loss of a very beloved member of Echo. And so that kind of turned into this internal discussion, and we came up with this kind of baseline place to start the conversation of, it's not a set of rules, it's about a set of principles, and really acknowledging that it's both from the crew and the responsibilities of organizations and pulling those two things together. So that was our first big initiative that we pushed out.
The Bill of Rights, that was, I think, first came around in what, like 2018, 2019-ish, somewhere right around there. But it really didn't kind of really take off until we were down in Florida, correct, for the conference there? I feel like that was the big time that it was really, introduced more so to the larger Echo cohort.
Yeah, so it was written right at the end of 2019. I think we actually published it on our social media kind of like as a January 1st New Year's resolution. Of course, nobody knew in January 2020 how the rest of that year was going to go. So our next conference was in Florida in 2021.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you look at the industry as a whole, and as you guys mentioned, there was, as Joe mentioned, 2008 being such a bad year, but there have certainly been patterns throughout since then that we've lost far too many people, and good, bad, or indifferent as far as the processes that have come from that. I think there's a lot of people that are just very frustrated with that entire concept that we're still losing people in, 2020, 2021, 2022. Like, we should do better as an industry, and we need to do better as an industry. And so I think that, the safety team was certainly something that sparked from that frustration that people have of how can we make this safer? How can we make it better? What can we do to make sure that every single one of us is going home at the end of the day? And so
I want to add to a story about the Bill of Rights. So when I started as a safety officer was 2019. Attended class, my mind was blown with this plethora of knowledge and lack of knowledge of what I knew I needed to grasp and things. So when I came back and started the discussions with the team, it takes 5 to 7 years to change a culture. You have to really put in the time and get buy-in from your team. So started the conversations, and one of our flight nurses on our program had come back and they're like, Crystal, I was searching online and I came across this Bill of Rights from this place called Echo, printed it off, and we looked at it and we're like, this is fantastic. So he had actually reached out, sent an email to the contact on there and said, hey, would you be okay if we adopted these Bill of Rights in our program? We don't know a lot about it, but can we do this? And got permission. So we adopted it into our program. And then when I went to Echo in San Diego and had first met Veronica and then last year took it, I was like, just so you guys know, we adopted these Bill of Rights, and it's in the orientation manual that everybody does when they sign on. You have to sign and acknowledge part of it, and then the administrator or leadership has to sign off. And then we've got 2 signs in our program, one hanging in the flight room and one in the locker room. In our last CAMES survey visit was a strong point. They're like, this is fantastic that you all acknowledge this and have this support. So when I was able to share that with Veronica, I kind of struck a nerve, like, hey, let me show you what some work behind the scenes had done, because it's implemented in our program now.
It's so cool to hear stories like that. I know, Blake, you've probably come across a lot of the same stuff with FFC and working so intimately with them, and just knowing that, the work that you put in really makes that difference. And to hear that, as again, a very new pillar of Echo, but to have such a profound impact on, program, that's certainly something we'd love to see, across every program in the country.
Yeah. I mean, just hearing that story alone, is the sole purpose of how and why we do what we do. And to have that's like right out the gate for Echo to say, hey, we want to create this safety team to do exactly that mission, right? To start those safety initiatives across the board. You look at other facets of pre-hospital care, right? So the fire service, for advocating for, clean cabs and things to protect firefighters against, cancers and things. And you look at ambulances for pushing for safer restraint systems, for when you're, moving and taking care of patients. Like, all those things are born out of these initiatives. So like, it only just makes sense to further, we also should be advocating for the safety and well-being of ourselves, especially in this field, to just keep us moving forward in the right direction. So I think that's just just a simple thing that's truly meant to be a good foundation. It clearly reaches across, and that's the whole mission of Echo, and then putting that safety out there, which I think is incredible.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Yeah. Every time Crystal tells that story, it gets me like right in the feels.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. How can it not, though? I mean, I think it sets that precedence from the beginning, and it wholeheartedly states from the get-go when you start working that organization, safety is not anything other than the standard. Right. It's not an option. It's a standard. And I think that's something that's really profound that, I think a lot of us kind of keep safety, in the back of our brains all the time. But, every time you go walking out that door, like that needs to be at the forefront of every single thing that you do. And even though we're always thinking about it, to make it that profound of a practice and to make sure that everybody, has that reminder every time they leave the door, and that to know that your leadership team has your back in that 100%, I think is also something extremely profound.
Absolutely.
So as far as obviously the Bill of Rights have had a pretty profound impact on some of these programs and making sure that everybody goes home safe at the end of the day. What other kind of initiatives are you guys working on? What are some of the current safety topics or trends that really has the hot topic for you guys, and what's safety team up to?
Oh boy, we're doing a lot.
What are
loaded question? I know.
What are you guys up?
We're already planning for the 2025 conference and what we want to bring to that conference as far as safety goes. Every year, at each conference, we've tried to bring a main point. San Diego, we did the unplanned IMC with the briefing cards for crews that they can actually carry on their badges. Just things like that we could bring that people could take home with them and take to their programs and share. As far as this year goes, we're spitballing a whole lot of stuff. We're hoping to get more social media outreach prior to the conference. That way you get more attendance and more people bringing stuff back to their programs. Big topic of conversation on the last meeting were laser strikes due to these unknown flying objects back east. It seems to have sparked a lot of laser strikes or increase in laser strikes. I know in my area and from talking to other people in their areas. So our next quarterly safety brief that we send out is probably going to be geared towards laser strike safety and how to deal with laser strikes, how to report, how to just not get injured when you do encounter those laser strikes.
Yeah, I feel like the laser strike topic is I think, at least in my area, that has definitely been a hot topic as of recent. I think we've noticed a significant uptick in it. And it seems like it runs in spurts. Like, we feel like we've kind of been okay for the last, couple months because it's been cold and nobody wants to be standing outside with their at-home laser. But I don't know if we have to do outreach with it. I don't know if we have to do more education on the crew side of things, because it's kind of, when it happens to you, it's that kind of shocking experience at first. And your immediate, thought is to look at whatever that light was that was coming in that direction. And certainly that's obviously not what we want to be doing in those situations.
Yes, it's very hard to keep yourself from going and looking for the person who's been laser striking you. I think that's been the hardest thing for us, is like, no, don't go looking for the person. Just mark it, contact ATC or whatever you do, and fly the opposite direction.
Yeah, for sure. And you also mentioned all those, we have a bunch of UAS TFRs all around us now. And I'm interested to hear, how that all pans out, and if we, actually, know what all of these things are at this point. But we've gotten quite a few even in our area where we've been notified by ATC that there's been, something showing up on radar, but they're not really sure what it is, and to have to divert courses and whatnot. So it's been an interesting go.
Some other topics, a big one across the board seems to be green on green.
Yeah.
When a lot of experience left the industry or even healthcare in general, you got newbies coming up, but how do you gain experience straight out of the chute? And how do you keep your team safe of how you mitigate green on green? And every program has different challenges. So we're trying to get a collaborative idea of what other people have done, because what works for one program might not work for the next program, but it'll give people ideas or the base to move forward to go, okay, well, how could we help mitigate it in a different direction? And so I think with our good group across the United States, that those conversations will help give tools to people that might not know where to start. Well, what are other people, rather than reinventing the wheel? What are some ideas that everybody else can give? And we can be that branch between some of those ideas and help pave that way to help fix that.
That's a really good point. Like it's interesting how, like, as we continue to discuss these topics, and with each podcast, while we're trying to touch on different topics, we have a lot of the same material or interests and topics that kind of cross both thresholds. So like when we talk with Future Flight Crew, it was talking about developing clinicians and people that are going to have such a good foundational knowledge. And when you talk about green on green, like, how do you instill these things into people that are new coming in? Because, there's this aspect of, I'm going to be a flight nurse, I'm going to be a flight medic, and there's so much, hype and everything built into it. And then as you start doing it and seeing the potential of things and how things can evolve, like it's just so important to really instill those things from the get-go. So I think it's just incredible as we keep having these discussions, how no matter what we're talking about, it always blends across each asset and each part of the public safety aviation sector. There's something that each asset can learn as we discuss these things. So I think that's such a really important topic, Crystal, about safety, especially from the get-go.
Yeah, and I think, it's even with the green on green stuff, it's oftentimes for a lot of organizations, it's not even about your clinical abilities. It's entirely about operations and, what to do in particular situations. And I love that that's being discussed now. And I know that, at my agency, we've had a green on green policy for a number of years now, and it pretty much lasts an entire, it's kind of a hard date of a year off of orientation. So once you've completed orientation, you start your green status. And it's been, a challenge for a lot of our scheduling to make sure that happens sometimes, especially on night shift. Right. But the reality is that's the safest and best thing to do. And I think it's interesting that you guys are bringing that up as an initiative within the safety team, because I certainly think that's something that's extremely important.
Yeah, I think it's an area that is a challenge that we're all facing across the industry, but it's a challenge to come up with ways to mitigate, because there's not a lot of, that I've found at least, data around it.
Sure.
And it's something that there's not data that's being shared around it. So, if there's a incident that results in an NTSB investigation, they only talk about what the experience of the pilot was. Like, there's this weird, who is and isn't a crew member, and we're all operating in a crew environment. And it's not, this is true in air medical, this is true in fire aviation, this is true in, most law enforcement outfits, right? They're generally not flying dual pilot. They're flying a pilot and a TFO who is a police officer that has been trained in aviation, no different than taking a firefighter and training them in aviation, or taking a medical person and training them in aviation.
Yeah.
And trying to look at incidents that have happened and be able to figure out if experience came in is really challenging, because it seems like something that agencies don't want to be super transparent about across the industry. And there's really nobody to force that issue, because in the eyes of the FAA, they're just looking at licensed pilots.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that question, and from a pilot perspective, Joe, how do you work with the green on green when you're typically the only one that's in the cockpit? I mean, I know some of the things that we do at our agency, but I was curious as to what your thoughts are on how do we really work with making sure that our pilots are just supported? I mean, Blake and I are working together, and he just started last month. Like, it's easy. Like, there's two of us in the back of the aircraft, and we can bounce ideas off of each other, and we can work through the things that we need to, but it's not exactly the easiest thing from the pilot perspective. So I'm curious where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, I have direct experience with this. I mean, when I first was hired on at Starflight, our crew chiefs were seasoned veterans. They'd been here a long time, and they could help me as a new pilot when we went on to do a rescue. Now, 10 years later, we've had this big cycle, and now our pilots are the seasoned ones, and our crew chiefs are the newer staff. So just like we were talking about earlier, is that ingraining stuff that the day they walk in the building on, these safe practices and that CRM and how valuable it is, I think plays a huge role. As they say, you don't know what you don't know. And outside of my organization, I've been to a lot of other organizations where, they're struggling to hire people, and they're hiring newer and newer folks that have zero experience, which nothing wrong with that. They're doing a great job training them. But again, you don't have that experience. Unfortunately, in our business, you build experience by going out and doing the experience, which is super dangerous, right? So you need those mentors. You need those folks that are in your ear, give you those tidbits of advice to help you, go home at night.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like within our agency, one of the ways that we've kind of worked around the green on green for our pilots, because we're still doing single pilot IFRs on those days that are, marginal, or that we're kind of on a call by call status. They try to have those pilots opposite of the ones that are opposite each other on aircraft, one being a seasoned pilot, one being the newer pilot, so that when they're having to make those weather decisions, that they have that experienced person on the other end of the phone looking at the same thing with them and talking through the whole process. And I think that's certainly been something that's been a huge help, and also a comfort in the crews too, to know that, that decision was made by two people who have plenty of hours flying. One may be newer to the area, to the industry, to the program, but they're at least having the discussion with somebody that's not.
Yes, that's excellent. I've seen some companies that actually have meteorologists in the OCC.
That's awesome.
Complete with that type of
That's
stuff.
really cool.
That's just an extra mitigation measure.
Man, I mean, just from a Florida perspective, that, and it's like this all over the country, like the weather is just that. It's so unpredictable, and you can forecast so much. And just from our state in the past couple of years of all the hurricanes, just as an example, there's all these predictions, and it's just, hour to hour, minute to minute, like it constantly changes. And where you think a storm or some pattern may go, it changes at the last second. And then now people that thought we were like, man, hey, we're in the clear, to now all of a sudden you're like, okay, now we're going to get hit. I think it's incredible that places would put meteorologists into like that operations center, which is incredible.
Well, I have to say, the weatherman that I watch on TV is oftentimes much more incorrect than any of my pilots that I work with. So I got to throw props out to my pilots, because I trust their opinion on the weather a lot more than I trust a lot of the local weathermen. No offense to meteorologists out there, but
No, but I think it also brings that point, because while the weatherman may say, hey, you're going to be good today, it's clear blue 22, but you have your pilots, and that's such a good example of crew resource management. And the CRM doesn't even have to happen. Like, it happens before you get in the aircraft and take off. Like, this is at the base. You get toned for a flight, or even your morning brief, to talk about, hey, here's what the forecast says. And not to knock on meteorologists, but it's kind of the same thing. A lot of the pilots are like, so here's the forecast, and it's one of those, we'll take it as it comes, because within the next 2 hours, it says we're going to get a front move through, and then you're waiting, and it's like, it's still sunny out. It hasn't happened yet. So the whole CRM starts from the get-go, and that's just instilled in your organization. And I think that's such a great thing that we talk about and be such a big part of that for our industry, because we know weather is obviously one of the biggest hot topics that's always going to be there. And to have everybody's input, not only from the pilot's perspective, but the crews, for you have that experienced pilot that they're like, no, yeah, we're fine. But you could have two newer clinicians that are maybe they just don't know, or they're just uncomfortable with it. And I think we're seeing a lot of places that are like, okay, you don't want to go, no questions asked. That's it. So I feel like being behind those and really enforcing that and allowing crews to have that ability, I think is what can really help drive that forward.
To tailor off that a little bit, when we built our green on green, kind of going off of what Veronica was saying, there's not a lot of data out there, but what I was seeing is when people would come off, if you did just put a time frame on there, let's say a year, what I was finding is most of the time, if we took nighttime, scene calls on the side of a highway in the mountains, that's probably one of your highest risk areas, right? So when we would pull someone off orientation and say, well, you get a year, and that's your nurse, what I was finding is the medic's usually right in the front. So I'm like, well, how do I know in that time frame and that year, how many times has the nurse been in front and ran the radios and helped the pilot with controls? There was no documentation on it. So we pulled it out. We made in our orientation process, ours is all operational, which is kind of what one of you had said earlier, more around the operational standpoint. But each orientation manual has to document so many times that each of them have been up front. You played plate guard, you ran the radios, you ran the scene, and your ninth grade documentation, which your post-flight debrief, matches that, because then our medical director will see that. They're supposed to type in what their objectives were. And then we come back and verify that we know that in that year time frame, you're experienced, you're gaining it. You're not just sitting in the back. And then with risk scores and phone calls, they've been given the autonomy that if you're not feeling safe, go ahead and grab one of the fixed wing crew to go with you, and we're out of service while they go. And then you've got somebody experienced there. So we have mitigated all the way down to pilot can have the last decision made. If they feel the crew is safe, take a time out. If you feel it's safe to land, we've got designated LZs that we know what the LZ is like that they can use, rather than going right to the scene and say, hey, we'll meet you here. So you could take it out as far as you want for all of those situations that you're up against.
Just Crystal brings up a great point of like just the general principle that I really try to instill in new folks is always building out more options. Right. And so that's what they've operationalized that she's talking about, is building that experience, but always building in more options that, so little in this industry. And that's why so much of it is based on, as Joe said, the experience that you get while you're getting it, is because there's so many gray areas and so many different levels of overlapping factors, and learning how to rank and sift those. So always trying to build out more options. And I think being able to say, no, I'm done is a super important thing in the industry. It's kind of something that's treated as sacred, right? But I think that the next question that is almost more important is the why. And to me, these two are kind of in tandem, is making yourself as a pilot, as a crew member, to where you are always contributing to building options. And then the part that goes hand in hand with that is always being curious. I'm not comfortable with this. Why? And then that's the opportunity for me to gain knowledge and learning from my really senior pilot. And maybe once that's explained, okay, I'm good to go. Let's go now. And now I know that. Or even in the opposite, right? By being operationally aware and curious, I can have a float pilot come in, or a new pilot to the program, and be like, hey, I know that in this coastal part of the state, this is where we tend to run into fogging issue this time of year, this time of weather, that's not going to be forecast. And having that knowledge because of being continuously curious.
And I think that CRM that, Blakey had kind of mentioned before, and it seems, you guys are dovetailing off now. I think that really incorporates back to having good CRM. And I'm curious as to, as we start to work through some of these safety initiatives and things are progressing with the industry, do you guys have any insight or forethought or hope for how CRM may change in the future?
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I know the 20 plus years I've been flying, CRM has increased exponentially. I remember, I flew all over the country, EMS, and every program I went to was different. I'd go to one and there was no briefing. There was no pre-takeoff check between the pilot and the crew. It was just the pilot flew from A to B and the crew took care of what was ever in the back. You don't see that anymore at all. You go anywhere in the country, everybody's pretty much doing briefings in the morning, first star shift. They're, using checklists in the aircraft, challenge and response. And it's grown huge. It's great. I love seeing it. How we continue growing it. I mean, I feel like we're to the point now where on the ground, the education that takes place in the flight ops prior to going on flight, I think is a huge plus. Hearing people game plan, the what ifs, emergency procedures, that type of stuff before you actually get in the aircraft I think that'd be a great step for the whole entire industry, not just EMS, but all the other disciplines that fly.
So you're saying that giving the self-loading baggage a voice is a good idea?
Yeah, it's been years since I even heard the self-loading baggage term. I mean, that's a plus. I'm gonna have to put that back in my repertoire.
I have a dream that before I'm, retired, that there's going to be somebody that comes into this industry that doesn't know what that phrase is because it's just something that has been eradicated across the board. Which
is so important because we should be encouraging for people to ask why, and that comes from, kind of really speaking to the people that are seasoned or experienced to like, it's not no one's questioning you personally or just the decision, but like people, they just want to know, hey, why was it this or why wasn't it this? And I feel like there should be no stigma on that. Like it's nothing punitive, but we just want to know why something is this way or why this wouldn't work. Just so that way everybody's on that same playing field and there shouldn't be any like shame or anything that comes from that other than just it's an open discussion about either why this may or may not be safe or unsafe. And we move on from that.
One of the only bumps I've ever probably come across in that realm is we have rotor, fixed wing, and ground. And we've had some fixed wing pilots come from the airline industry to air medicine. And so it's new to them. Then we get our crew who wants to chat and have all the conversations. And a few of them, and they're like, well, why are you questioning me? I'm the pilot. And so I come back and just explain, okay, let's reverse the roles here. If your family member got sick, we brought him into the hospital and we had to do X, Y, Z. You're always going to ask questions like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Are you keeping my family safe? So that's all we're doing on the flip side. So you change that perspective and then they didn't take it as offensive. Like, hey, are you questioning me? It's more of a knowledge base. Like, hey, we're in this together. The more that you help me feel comfortable, you understand where our program is coming from, why we're asking the questions, why we developed this as a no. It totally improves that CRM that we're talking about. We've had, pretty good outcomes just being able to change that dialogue a little bit.
That's a really, really good way to have a good analogy about that, to really give that other perspective. I really like that a lot.
I was also curious if you guys are also seeing some changes as far as some of the safety stuff goes. I feel like the general practice before for risk assessments was pretty much a pilot thing. Are you seeing a whole lot of changes within the industry where those risk assessments are now becoming an entire crew aspect and asking some factors that may affect stress levels, sleep levels, types of missions that you're going on, those kind of things from a crew perspective rather than just from a pilot perspective?
I love this topic. Yes.
That's why I was saying quiet. I figured you were going to speak.
Everybody on our crew does a risk score, and it's shared across at the beginning at shift briefs from the specialty team that might be on OB, NICU, RT, medics, nurses, your dispatcher. Our dispatch center is right in our emergency room where our team has access. So we share that information across the board because we're a tight-knit group. You work side by side with everybody really close. And when you can recognize where those risk scores are and you put in all the factors like you had mentioned, whether it be distracted, fatigued, whatever I'm one that constantly reads the risk scores. I can keep an eye on what people are doing. And we only have our one base versus big programs that have lots of bases. They don't have that interaction day to day. that might be the only thing that they have to be able to look at to go, how's my crew doing today? And you're hundreds of miles away from them. So you have to rely on that to kind of have some insight over where your team stands. But it helps with those conversations like, hey, do you need me to help mitigate today? Where are you at? Or are you distracted? And maybe your partner's going through some things. Maybe they're going to be a little bit more hyper-focused to help keep that person in line and just keep that transparency there to say, hey, this is really how we're going to help each other better with all those types of questions. And ours include weather, operational, your mental state, your fatigue assessment, even ground. Is it day? Is it night? Our green on green comes in there. How many years have you been flying? How many years have you been with this program? What season are we in? It incorporates all of that. And every program will be a little bit different, but we really want to teach people to tailor it to what works at your base and what works for your system.
Sure. Obviously, those operational concerns and those kind of things are very different for Blake in Florida than they are for, you up in Montana, right? But, I think it's good to have those conversations. And I think it's also good to have that personal check-in with your crewmates every day, and just because I'm having a lot of external stress that's going on right now, doesn't mean I have to spill my guts and tell everything about what's going on in my life, but at least that my partners are aware that, hey, I've got some other things that are in my mind, some other factors, and we need to take that into consideration. Or, hey, if I'm not quite acting myself, that it's an opportunity for them to say, hey, you sure you're doing okay? Let's think about this before we go on this transport.
Do you have alligators in Montana? Is that part of you have to watch out for those when you get out of the aircraft?
Yeah, bears and moose. Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys nailed it on the head. Is the risk assessments, they have to be tailored to your organization, and also they should constantly be changing. You should always be looking at them. I know several people I've discussed this with. They look at it every 6 months. Change them up. We just added our maintainers, so we've never had our maintainers on our risk assessment. We have an aircraft that requires a little more maintenance than our prior aircraft, so we've decided to put that in so we keep track. I'm fortunate we have a very small organization, so I kind of keep an eye on each individual. So when I start seeing those numbers creep up, I can just walk out there and talk to them. Yeah, hey, what's going on? It's usually temperature related, or it's usually an outside factor.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's also important as we constantly assess the risk and update these lists, but we have to be honest when filling out these risks.
For sure.
Especially, there's the ones that you can't fudge, there's certain, but the ones when it comes to how are you doing and stuff, it's just important for everybody to be honest and fill it out. The risk is what it is, because as long as we can acknowledge that, just being honest about that could easily prevent something from happening. And I think that's another really important aspect, is just be honest about it, and that's okay.
And that's where leadership at these programs need to really follow the just culture algorithms, so that these people don't feel punished. You've got to create the culture that they can be honest and transparent, and that it's going to be taken seriously and not in a punishable sense to make them feel bad and then not be honest. They have to fully be supported.
That it's geared towards the focus is being able to find ways to mitigate, being able to improve the system to support, to be able to get whatever your profile is, to be able to complete flights, and providing those tools. And the fact that we are, as has been said, we're all in this together. So if Mike's my partner and we're flying with Joe, and you guys, I'm not upfront and honest about where I am, like we said, if I'm expected to be a functioning member of this team, then you need to know where I am and know that, hey, if I'm only at 70% today, that we've got to find ways to make up for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the big thing is the mitigation of those. We all accept some level of risk working in this industry, right? We know that there is some level of risk associated with all of it. And depending on what's going on with weather, with personal factors, the amount of sleep you're getting, those kind of things, the type of patient you're going for, all of those things can factor into how much that risk increases. But as long as you can identify those mitigation strategies and figure out how you can make it safer, I think that's half the battle sometimes.
And being honest about it is how we don't know about some of these things. Joe, you said it earlier, you don't know what you don't know, so if you're not being forthcoming or something about whatever issue it is, there might be an easy fix to that. And even if there isn't, there might be a road to get to that. And that's what really just kind of like, at least for me, I just feel like really drives that home.
Yeah, and to go above and beyond that as a leadership, if you see people being in those high risk ranges and you can't mitigate, stopping that action, stopping the operation, that goes a long way. Other staff will see that and see that you truly are concerned with their well-being and their safety, and you will stop an operation and shut a helicopter down, or put out of service for an hour while you go get somebody else. That goes a long, long way, rather than just saying, "Hey, fill this out." And they see you getting high and not doing anything about it.
Right.
Or seeing system improvements happen because of a trend on risk assessments, right? That creates buy-in for people to know that, hey, this actually makes a difference. These are looked at. And on the crew level, I've only ever seen it build crew cohesion and crew bond.
And I think, when you look at seeing it from the leadership down, I think that that's one thing. But I think there's also, we all have in this industry an innate sense of purpose, or that we need to go and complete the mission. And, I would like to, as much as I hate to say it, safety is not always the sexy card, right, that you're pulling out. So like, how do you create that environment? And I know you said leadership has a big part in that, but on the crew level, how do you advocate for those change in safety practices? How do you make that the standard? How do you make it, how do you make, safety sexy again?
Peer accountability.
I feel like that's a new slogan for you guys now.
That should be a t-shirt.
Gonna
That
say,
should be a t-shirt.
Making safety sexy again.
That's awesome. I'm telling you, there should be a new shirt at Echo.
That absolutely needs to be a new shirt.
It could happen.
You're welcome.
And quote finale on that. Whoever's listening, put that out there.
We'll have to note that down so we don't forget.
That's right.
But peer accountability is huge. I don't have the answer on how to build peer accountability. It's a very difficult topic. But, you're your brother's or sister's keeper. You should be constantly watching out for one another. Again, just like Mike said at the beginning of the show, we want to make sure everybody goes home after shift. And I think that should be a huge driver to go from the bottom up as well as from the top down.
Some conversations I've been part of when they're like, well, is leadership going to come in and make me go home for the day? And again, they view it as punitive. Hey, I know you're fatigued. Probably shouldn't be on shift today. You're going to go home, and it's defensive. We immediately go into the defensive mode. I was like, man, there were sometimes people would be like, Crystal, you can go home, take a nap. We'd be like, peace out, I'm going. We're like,
sign me up.
That's right.
God, tell me twice.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, this is a good thing. The fact that we're recognizing, because if something catastrophic happened today, and I try to always use the analogy, worst case scenario, the NTSB is going to come in and expose it. And then it's going to be like, well, you as a safety officer do it and you let it happen. Sorry.
Yeah,
your family's going to think me to be like, hey, if I'm telling you it's okay to take a nap today, and these are just examples that I've used.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Then you just say, yeah, okay, I take it for what it is, and I'm going to go home. Again, it's back to the just culture that this isn't punitive. It's recognizing that mitigation piece. But in society, we do take defense because we always think, assume the worst, right? Versus assume good intent first. We can go in with assume good intent, that there's good moral decision behind this of what the good outcome is. Take a second, recognize where that message is coming from. Say there's a good perspective behind this and maybe a reason. All right, I'll accept it and I'll go. As long as that just culture is followed, then I think that helps move in the right direction.
Yeah, for me, it boils down to just coming from a place of caring. That even when, I'm actively on the line in a dual, safety flight nurse role, and that my crew knows that I care so deeply about everybody going home at the end of the shift. And so when I call something out or when I ask hard questions, one, I can explain the technicalities of why I'm asking something, but I've building that background, and that's just by repetition, right? You just have to keep consistently doing it. Wow. That, there might be an eye roll, but right after that eye roll, it's like, she's right. And I know V cares. And I can't ask for anything more than that, than people to know that the hard things are from a place of caring.
sometimes the right thing to do isn't always the easiest thing to do.
100%.
And
100%.
and that's again how we do that culture change and shift to, we are human beings, taking care of human beings. We're not flying cargo, we're flying human beings, and we're all human. And in order to be successful in doing such an incredible, job, we have to be safe, and we have to have such a good, well-rounded approach to this and doing it correctly, so we can continue to do such an incredible job and it's such an incredible role of taking care of other people. But it also starts with us taking care of ourselves and each other to be able to continue, that mission.
I was just going to say, like, if we were going to go out and drive today, you had to go on a 3-hour drive. We're going to pull up the road report. We're going to put in all the extra work before we put our family in the car. Just do the same when you fly.
Yeah.
Put in the extra work to go, this is the best decision. Just because we can doesn't mean we always should.
Right.
Take that time out. Your liftoff time goes out the window. Make sure that you're putting all the factors in place to make your best decision prior to going.
I think that's a really interesting point, though, that you brought up, because a lot of the agencies that are out there have multiple facets of transportation, whether it be rotor, fixed, or ground. And I feel like a lot of the risk assessments that you're seeing out there are always geared towards the air side of things, and very few are geared towards the ground side of things. And there are certainly some pioneers, I think, in the industry that are making sure that those ground assessments are different and tailored and appropriate for those particular conditions. And I think that's something that I hope to continue to see in the industry, is those risk assessments. I think it's great that you do one, but if it's the same as your aircraft one, are you really taking into account all of the things that you need to take into account based off of distance, based off of weather, based off of road conditions, and making the appropriate decision of, is this the right time, the right mode, the right way to get this patient? So I think that's a really great point. So we've done a lot of talking through some of the trends in the industry, and we talked about your involvement with Echo for a little bit. How would you guys say being part of the Echo safety team has kind of either changed or enhanced your own safety practices? Aside of it just being at the forefront all the time, it sounds like we have a couple safety officers, that we're chatting with here, which I think is awesome. But how has, having that role, or then also being part of the Echo safety team, changed the way you look at safety, or how you practice safety, or how you promote safety?
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers, who serve, protect, and save lives and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Man, enhancement, I would definitely put a flag on that. I have a pilot background. To be involved in an organization that has safety officers and folks from every single type of discipline, clinicians, other pilots, a respiratory therapist, that just helps build my knowledge base and use the stuff that they've recommended at my place. If I see something that somebody else is using on the team, I think that's going to work well where I'm at, I borrow it. I always tell people, safety is all about borrowing. Borrow every safety that you can. All my stuff.
Proprietary about it.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, proprietary. I constantly tell our folks, if somebody asks you for anything of ours, safety related, give it to them. You don't have to ask me. SMS mail, send it their way. Fatigue risk management system. Sure. Send it. I want everybody to see what we have, and I want to be able to see what everybody else has. That's how I make the best safety program I possibly can.
That's awesome.
What I've loved going is my cup gets full of, because I'm surrounded by people who are equally as excited about safety as me. And that's hard to find, to get people there. So I go and I'm ecstatic and I have all these ideas, and I come home and I'm like, wow, I want to go back, be by all these people. But like Joe said, you have a plethora of knowledge across the board, and the networking has been huge. I'm way out west. We don't have quite the population you guys do, but learning the networking and groups that you have is completely exciting. And every time I go to Echo, I learn something new. So I already told you the story about what I've done with the Safety Bill of Rights. Well, now what I get to tell you that I'm adding into all the orientation manuals is there's a big shift on mental health. So in our orientation manual is what the hospital offers. And then there's a section for the FAST team of what is out there for resources that provide that. So every time I go, I learn something more because this is the exposure that I have. And the family feel that Echo isn't just, hey, here's a industry conference, let me just give you this. It is the family feel that comes from all of the carrying opportunities, that wants to share, that wants to give and help educate each other. So that part just completely fills my cup and made me excited to stay on and move into my role that I'm at now. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Hang out with my safety nerds.
I can never match Veronica and Crystal's energy for safety.
well,
We need more. We need more of you.
I don't know about that, Joe. You don't give yourself enough credit. No, it's awesome to see. And I think it's also a great experience having so many discussions or talks at the Echo conference that are safety, they're founded in safety, and then having the safety panel discussions and going through and really making that at the forefront rather than an afterthought. And I think that's awesome. One of the things that you guys are doing, and love to see that, and can't wait to see more of that.
Well, if you didn't attend the safety roundtable last year, you missed out. That was fabulous. Fabulous. It was crazy. I was not expecting it to turn out to what it turned out to be. Chelsea and Dan and everybody on the team did a great job fostering the conversation. And we had some really, really good chats. And I'm really open for 2025, that safety roundtable to grow. I thought we take up the whole main room and do a safety roundtable.
I mean, that was our first year ever trying that. And, it was, I think the day that it was on, it was one of the last things of the day. We hit the end of the allotted time, and there were people that stayed and continued to talk and share ideas. And it was just incredible to be a part of and to meet new folks.
Yeah, I unfortunately was not able to make it to the roundtable this past year, but I will certainly be putting it on my to-do list for next time. We've talked about a lot of different concepts over the past hour or so, and I'm curious. So you guys mentioned some of the current initiatives. I would say, as far as you're looking for the next few years, what kind of goals do you guys have as a team? Where do you want to, not necessarily on concepts for safety, but like where do you see the team going, and what kind of products, if you will, or tangible things do you think we might be able to create in the industry coming from the Echo Safety team?
Something that I look forward to, what I learned when I was able to go to SMTA to become a safety officer, is there's a lot of programs out there that have a safety officer. They got the badge, but they don't have the training. So I hope that we become that base when people don't know where to start. Maybe they don't have the money or the funding or whatever it be for them to go to these kind of courses, and they really don't know where to start. So here is a group of people that will help facilitate all of the tools that you may need, or maybe even just a topic of an idea to say, hey, here's something that we ran across. We don't really know where to go with it. Can I give it to you guys? And then we come back with some tools to help foster the ideas moving forward to these programs. And like I said, it could be a variety of things from the safety officer role or just safety concepts. It could be culture related. The other part, I think it was one of our meetings last year, we talked about even adding more different types to our safety group, bringing in a mechanic or two, maybe even a dispatcher, comms or two, other people that help just bridge the gaps that are in our industry that maybe aren't so recognizable at the beginning, but just say, hey, here's some pieces that we really could collaborate on moving forward.
Yeah, if you can figure out how to get the mechanics involved more, please pass that along to FAST as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely want a well-rounded safety team with all disciplines on it to help us just become better. And I'll tag on to what Crystal says and just repeat, but there are lots of organizations out there that have safety officers, but they have not received that, true safety officer trainer. They're updating the safety board. I've been a CAIM site surveyor since 2013. don't throw anything at me. And I've been to a lot of programs like, hey, this is our safety person. And I start asking them about, how they run, a safety investigation, or how, they do different, what a normal safety officer would do. And they don't even get a chance to do that. It's ran by somebody at their headquarters. Okay. And they're not even getting the full, full effort to their individual base. So it'd be nice, like Chris said, to offer the more, I don't want to say low cost, but just not having to pay and go to the 2-year programs to get some of that education. I think it'd be very beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that we had talked about before, and I don't know, V, maybe this is something that you're looking at talking about, but we had kind of tried to, with the inception of safety, it was kind of bridged with FAST, and being able to kind of have joint type programs to not only help be proactive on the mental health side, but also being proactive on the safety side, and being able to kind of bring those things together. And I think there is a lot of cross-reference that can happen there, and go-betweens on the two teams. So I think that'd be, I think, awesome to see if programs being able to bring, safety and FAST in and have those crucial conversations. I think it's something that would be extremely important in the future.
Yeah, that was a couple of the things that kind of got us started in the beginning, was invited by a program to go out, and somebody from FAST and, a safety person to present about mental wellness and peer support, and present on a safety topic, talk about CRM, something like that. Definitely want to continue to be a resource in that way. And I think, tagging on to what Crystal and Joe were saying about what resources safety officers need, is creating a larger network to connect safety officers to each other. That's one of the greatest things, being in the safety team. When I have a question about something, like, I have such great people to go to of, hey, how did you solve this problem? As Joe said, like, you borrow from everybody. There's no need, we don't need to reinvent the wheel for a lot of things. So
right.
For safety officers to have that group that they know, that they have an ongoing dialogue with for various topics. And I'd love to see us become somewhere that people think of to look to when they're looking for information about a safety topic. 2024 was our first year doing the newsletter from the safety team, which I think is kind of the foundational blocks of starting to build out a library of topics.
I think that's a really just such a great option to have, and hopefully that can be a way that the Echo safety team can be a part of and being integrated into our listeners' programs, where you work at. So how can somebody start to do that? And then also, like, how can somebody get a hold of the Echo safety team?
We have a really easy email, safety at echoflightcrew.org.
Beautiful.
Awesome. So you can contact any one of us, but that's a really easy catch-all that comes to the team. And then also, if you go onto the Echo website, there's a page for the safety team that gives you contact info.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to see that kind of being integrated into our more and more programs out there. I think that's a really good concept that you guys have. And I'm hoping that some of our listeners out there are, even more engaged, and really we're able to kind of get excited about things. Remember making safety sexy again. But I hope that they're really,
You just had to find a way to work that back in.
I'm pushing this hardcore from here. Yes, I think
this is awesome. I've already been coming up with ideas in my head of what this shirt should look like.
I think it should be a song that we all listen to on the ring in the morning.
Mike's doing the choreography.
And he's going to sing it. He's going to sing it at the next conference.
Trust me, none of you want me singing. That is absolutely not going to happen.
So we're going to bring everybody into the safety panel with Mike's live performance.
He has a brand new karaoke speaker and machine.
We're not supposed to tell everyone this, Blake.
I'm telling everybody. I think this should be wholeheartedly part of the next conference.
Fantastic. It's out there now.
It's out.
I have been trying to think of a good safety slogan to put on the Echo safety patch. I think that
I think that's it.
Safety sexy again.
What an amazing patch that would make.
I can see it. But no, I'd love to see some of our listeners hopefully reach out and get engaged, and being able to bring some of these concepts to their own programs and really start to have those conversations, even if it's just talking about things around the base. I think that's like where it starts, right? And being able to have those conversations, and then being able to reach out to all of you guys and hopefully get some more resources or some ideas or ways that they can continue to make safety the absolute number one priority in all their programs. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of folks still don't realize. Like, they look at the conference and, we're bringing in more and more aviators, and we're trying to get, just like safety team, we want every discipline represented in every sector of public safety aviation. Is that, over the last few years, we've a lot of emphasis on building out the amount of safety topics that are offered, either as, pre-conferences. We had one this last year about crew resource management pre-conference, but also throughout the whole conference, there's an entire safety track. And we've been able, over the last few years, to bring in enough safety presentations that basically, I'm going to go out on a limb without re-looking at conference agendas, but that in every time slot, that there's at least one presentation that's going on that's
on safety
relevant.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I think for the longest time, it was something we just kind of, said was the important part, but we kind of ignored it when we didn't have to think about it. And it was just, I don't want to say swept under the rug, but it wasn't at the forefront of every discussion that we're having. And I think that we're seeing that more and more, just as we're seeing, the trend and topic change within mental health, and that, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to pull the safety card, and it's okay to have those crucial conversations, and it's okay to make sure that everybody's on the same page with it all. And I think you guys are instrumental in being part of that movement. And we thank you guys for being able to do that and having those conversations and being willing to do that in an open and honest and meaningful way.
I heard this is how I was going to get really popular, was doing safety. So
I mean,
Everybody will love you.
I can't think of a better way.
I suggest you have a very serious conversation with the person that told you that.
You're popular with me, Veronica.
thanks, Crystal.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on to the podcast today and having a discussion with us. I mean, we've covered a lot of really important topics, talking about whether it be green on green status, crew resource management, and other safety trends and topics within the industry. And it's been a really enlightening conversation to have with all of you. So we can't thank you enough for coming out here and having these discussions with us. I really think that these are some important things that we need to start doing more of. So hopefully you guys, this wasn't too traumatic for you, that we can have, some of you guys coming back, or if you have other members of the safety team that would like to come back and start integrating into some of these podcast discussions. I think that'd be absolutely awesome.
We'd love to have it.
So if anybody does have any interest in contacting the Echo Safety Team, you can certainly reach out to them at safety@echoflightcrew.org. Also, you can visit the website, which would be echoflightcrew.org, and look under the safety tab there. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you to Joe, Veronica, and Crystal. This has been an absolutely amazing discussion, and we really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with us. We also want to thank our listeners for their continued support of Vertical Helicast platform and the Valor Flight Crew podcast. And we will talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, and save lives and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
That wraps up another episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. A huge thanks to Veronica, Crystal, and Joe from the Echo Safety Team for sharing their expertise and insights on such a crucial topic. We hope that you find these discussions as important and necessary as we do, and we challenge you to bring these topics to the table at your HEMS programs. We've talked about various topics, including laser strikes, UAS operations, fostering a just and transparent safety culture, and tackling green-on-green status. We encounter safety obstacles every day, and it's clear that overcoming those challenges requires a commitment to continuous learning, collaboration, and ongoing mitigation throughout each and every shift. We are committed to improving our industry's safety standards, and we challenge you to do the same. As always, if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your fellow HEMS teammates. For more discussions on safety, industry trends, and operational strategies, stay tuned to the Valor Flight Crew podcast. Until next time, fly safe and keep pushing those boundaries for a positive culture of safety in your organization.